Hey guys, Joe here, and welcome to a new Dragon Ball FighterZ video. It's been a while since I've made one of these, but today I want to talk about, well, recently, and by recently I mean last weekend, a brand new balance patch was announced for the game that released last Sunday. And, wow, what a fucking balance patch it's been. I've been experimenting for the last couple of days. But for today's video, I want to start a series covering every single character in the game, all the changes they got, as well as talking about, the changes I liked, the changes I didn't like, and what changes I would give to the character to help them even further. Or to what changes I would give to the characters, to improve them a little bit. Whether that be buffs, nerfs, quality of life changes, reworking certain things, so on and so forth. But on top of that, I'll also be going over in this video the system mechanics that were added in the recent patch, which I will be doing the same thing for. So like I said, today's video is going to be going over the system mechanics, and every week I'll be uploading a video going over each character in the patch and talking about, like I said, the changes they got, which ones I liked, which ones I didn't, and last but not least, what changes I would add, both to the system mechanics and to the characters. So, without further ado, let's get this video underway. Okay, so starting off with system mechanic changes, the first one I want to talk about is key charge. Key charge. This. Now, as most of us know, key charge is not exactly practical most of the time. I mean, there's one situation in which you can make use of it, but we'll get to that at another point. But key charge did indeed get some changes, or rather some more changes, as if making it deflect key blasts wasn't already enough. Like, no, seriously, look at this. It is fully key blast invul, which is just ridiculous. But not only is it key blast invul, but now you can cancel out of it much faster with any move. And you retain that key blast invul for just a slight bit longer, which is crazy. But not only can you cancel out of it faster, if you use Dragon Rush or Super Dash, you cancel out of it much quicker. Like so. Now, of course, you gotta be holding down the charging buttons, the buttons to do the key charge, and then hit the Super Dash button while you're charging, but still, pretty cool regardless. And like I said before, not only does it apply to Super Dash, it also applies to Dragon Rush. Which is just fucking bonkers. Absolutely fucking bonkers. Will this make key charge worth using? Don't know. But I guess that's something we'll have to find out as time goes on. And speaking of Super Dash, by the way, Super Dash is now capable of deflecting key blasts when canceling it out of key charge, like so. Something like that, anyways. Okay, it's not full screen, but it's close, I guess. But yeah, you're basically Ki Blast Invul in when Dragon Rushing out of Ki Charge. So again, maybe this will make Ki Charge worth using, who knows. But yeah, this is not just a buff to Ki Charge, it's also another buff to Dragon Rush, which is already really good as is because it's a command grab. So, you know. Nice. The next change I want to talk about is in regards to Z Reflect, aka Reflect. The way they changed Z Reflect is if you time a Reflect just right, you'll get pretty much this game's equivalent of a perfect parry, basically a perfect Reflect. Now this is a regular Reflect, and hopefully if I could get it on the first try, this is a perfect Reflect. Now as to how you can punish after a perfect Reflect, I have no idea. That needs some experimentation. But it works. And of course you can still block. And regular Reflect, but you might get the occasional perfect Reflect. It's not easy to get, but if you can time it correctly, you could potentially be very much rewarded. Well, like I said, experimentation still needs doing, so that's up in the air. So, I guess we'll have to see what this thing could do. But what, of course, is one good change without another to complement it? Vanish also got buffed, to where if you time a perfect Reflect and then Vanish, you will now be invincible frame 1 when you Vanish. And I'm not making this up. So think of that. But now, frame 1 when you Vanish. So definitely, this is definitely to help. This, like I said, is a change I feel meant to complement the new Z Reflect change, which honestly works pretty well, I'd say, but I guess, like I said, only time will tell. I'm curious to see how far Z Reflect will take the game, but it is a very fascinating mechanic, and one that I think, if mastered, could potentially be a game changer, but it could also be potential for, you know, some interesting mix, 50-50, something like that. We'll see. Like I said, as time goes on, we'll see what happens. But I honestly hope this thing ends up being good and well balanced, and not totally busted like it is in other games. So I guess we'll just see what the player base can come up with. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the change made to Z Reflect is easily one of my favorite of the patch. That was the first of my favorite changes of the patch. I really do like the idea of being able to, you know, time a perfect parry of sorts and punish off of it. But that isn't my only favorite change of the patch, because my other favorite change of the patch comes from Sparking Blast, which now has reduced block stun, which looks like this. You are now -5 if you Sparking Blast on an opponent in block. Meaning the opponent blocking, if they bait out a spark, the person sparking is going to be far more punishable. This is a change I felt that was very much needed, because considering how strong Sparking Blast is in the current day, in the current version of the game, I think having something to balance it out was more than necessary, and this was the change that was more than needed. And I am so glad it is in the game. Now, of course, I definitely think other things need some fine-tuning, but hey, This is something at least. I am not complaining. I'm really glad that, for as strong as Sparking Blast is, Arxis was willing to nerf it just enough to balance out how crazy strong it is in some way. I still don't think you should be able to cancel, you know, numerous specials into each other. That's kind of ridiculous. But, oh well. The next change is to High Jump, which now has greater midair control when in sparking. So in other words, yeah, you now have greater control midair when in sparking. The only character that doesn't is Master Roshi, but that's, well, there's a reason for that. And the same goes for Videl not having a Z-Reflect. There again is a reason for that. But I don't think I need to tell you too much about that, do I? Okay, so this next change is just absolutely fucking bonkers. Off the fucking walls. It is insane. Like, actually insane. So, every A and B assist in the game has been buffed to have a faster cooldown. This is in comparison to a C assist. You now get 3 assists. You get 3 assists compared to the 1 C assist, which has a 12-second cooldown, which was given to it in the last patch. Oh boy, this yeah, this is gonna make gameplay a lot faster, because if you're able to get your assist back that quickly, that means you're going to be able to do everything you want to with said assist at a much greater pace. It's insane. I can't say I don't like it though, because having more access, immediate access to your assist allows for a lot more flexibility, I suppose, which is nice. And considering, you know, the combo video I made, you know, the one with my main team, this basically buffs my main team, because now I could do those combos at a much more frequent pace, or I could do those combos much more frequently without, you know, worrying about having lost resources, which is just the most insane fucking thing in the world. So, you know, we're winning. Oh god. However, A and B assists are not the only things that got a reduced cooldown. Z change also got a reduced cooldown. So if you don't know what Z change is, basically it's where you super as one character and then activate another character's super, like such. Now there's a reduced cooldown on when the character comes back, which is honestly a brilliant move. I'm so glad Arxis went with this route rather than making, like, combo tag, which is, you know, that, you know, have a faster cooldown. I think having, you know, having it to where you have to spend meter to get that faster cooldown was a very smart move. So, good on you, Arxis. This next change, I don't know how to properly present this, but to put it simply, aerial guard cancel. One of the worst mechanics added into DBFZ. Adjustments have been made to guard cancel. Specifically when the opponent is midair and in a high position. Basically what will happen is you can now act sooner midair if you are, guarded against. In other words, if the other person is guarding, you can act sooner, I believe. Either that or... yeah, I don't know. But regardless, mid-air guard cancel is far less of an issue with this change. I'm not fully sure how this works. I mean, it might work the way I described it. I personally don't know, but it is definitely a very good change. This hopefully will make aerial guard cancel a lot less frustrating to deal with and a lot less problematic. And the last change is quite possibly, in my opinion, the worst system mechanic change of this patch. Now, Limit Break, as you all probably know, is already incredibly strong, but what you're about to see is about to make this even worse. Now, when you are in Limit Break, you now automatically build meter. You know how Super Broly, when he got beefed up to level 3, when he does his level 3 and gets the power up, he just automatically builds meter? Yeah, now everybody can do that. And just for the record, what this basically means is that every anchor character in the game has been subsequently buffed. Unintentionally or otherwise. Yeah, Limit Break is now even crazier than it was before. So, yeah, great news for the anchor characters, not so much for everybody else. And fuck, any character can now be an anchor character, because this just, I don't know. It's ridiculous, let's say that. This is one of the most ridiculous changes they've added in a long time. Limit Break is not supposed to be this powerful, and the way it was before this patch was perfectly fine, so why buff it? Well, I probably will never get the answer to that question, but it's frustrating to think about. They didn't need to do this, but they did it anyways. So, fuck. So now that I've covered all of the new changes to the system mechanics, I very quickly want to go over the changes I liked, the changes I disliked, and then afterwards go over the changes I would add. So, with that said, let's start with the changes I liked. And there were a pretty select number of changes that I really liked from this patch. Those being the changes to Z-Reflect with the changes to Vanish to complement it, the nerf to Sparking Blast on block, the reduced cooldown for Z assists and Z change, and last but not least, the guard cancel change. Those are easily my favorite changes out of the entire patch. In regards to Z Reflect, I mean, it's not an easy thing to pull off, but if you do pull it off, I could see certain characters having potential for, punishes, 50-50 mix-ups, something like that. Like, for example, let's say, I'm playing Super Saiyan Goku, and I get a perfect reflect, let's say. I have a ton of options at my disposal to go in with. If I can hit it, of course.
Maximum power!
Right? I have, the EX Dragon Flash Fist at my disposal, which, remember, is also a crossover. So, not only is it really good on a regular reflect, but with this, I think it has the potential to be really good. Just as an example. Right? Just as an example. Another change, and in regards to the Vanish change, obviously having Vanish complement the Z change, the Z Reflect change, was a necessary thing. I do really like that. In regards to the faster assists, I mean, having your assists back faster, having some of your best resources returned to you much quicker is a really good thing. And I do mean a really good thing. Especially if you're going to be doing crazy shit like I was doing in my combo video. Like, for example, having those assists come back faster is so unbelievably good. And not only that, but being able to do supers into each other, like one character does a level 1 and then another one does, and being able to get the character you switched off from back faster, so you can have access to their assist like immediately, is so unbelievably good. And I don't think I need to mention the guard cancel changes, which is going to make aerial guard cancel a lot less of an issue, which, thank the Lord above. Holy shit, that was necessary. Oh, and of course, how could I possibly forget? You are now punishable if you spark on blocks, meaning spark baits now, you know, bring about much greater reward, which is just fucking awesome. I think those changes in particular are the best out of the entire patch, because it feels like these changes don't really break the game, but they make the game feel faster paced, and there's a lot more risk and reward to everything you do with these two, you know, and now there's a lot more risk and reward, which is super fucking nice, you know. And I also want to give a quick mention to the key charge change, as well as the Dragon Rush change paired up with it. I think there might be some potential with those changes, if key charge is even used. If not, so be it, but if so, there might be something to it. Maybe there is. I'm not saying that the key charge and Dragon Rush changes are included in my favorites, but I definitely wanted to give them a mention because I think they could have potential, but I guess that's up for debate. I guess we'll just have to wait and see as time goes on, as I've said numerous times before. So, we'll see what people can come up with. And knowing many creators in the Dragon Ball FighterZ community or on YouTube, they'll come up with some interesting stuff. Players are all about innovation. With every new patch, there's always something new to discover and more innovations to make in their gameplay. So, you know, there's always going to be room for exploration. Always. So let's see what they can cook up. And now it's time to cover the changes I don't like about this patch. The biggest one being the limit break change. I don't know who on the team thought letting characters build more meter was a better idea, but, like, let me tell you, making anchors stronger is not the way to go. If anchors are already strong as is, making them stronger is not the way to go. Let them stay as strong as they are. Because, let's say you've got Super Saiyan Goku on anchor, just as an example, right? And he has, let's say, 3 bars. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? That's a bit ridiculous. And considering how much movement in this game builds meter, you're just going to be constantly having a stream of meter all the fucking time. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. You don't need that. You absolutely don't need that. This is definitely the worst change of the patch. One that did not need to happen. Limit Break is already strong. And now they just made it even more fucking ridiculous. Which absolutely fucking sucks. But, to be fair, the fact that the Limit Break change is the only change of the patch that I did not like is telling, to say the least. Especially considering what the last patch brought with it. Which was a lot of ridiculous nonsense. I mean, canceling specials into each other in Sparking Blast, Frame 4 Invul, Level 1 Supers. Like, that's just absurd, you know? So, I'm glad that this patch had much better universal mechanic changes than the last patch did. That I will give credit to. So, yeah, not the biggest fan of the limit break change. As if limit break wasn't already strong enough. Now, characters in limit break are even stronger. Especially dedicated anchor characters. Like Base Goku, or Super Baby 2, or hell, my boy Tien, who is a literal who went from being a shotgun, to a artillery cannon, to a nuclear fucking bomb! It is absurd! I'll explain more about that when I get to it, but holy shit! This patch is just full of everything and anything at once. So, you know. This is, yeah. I don't even know what else to say. Just, this change should be reverted. I hope if another balance patch comes along, this change gets reverted, because that's ridiculous. So now we've come to the final part of the video where I talk about all the changes that I personally would add to the game. And thankfully, I had a list made ahead of time. And when I say ahead of time, I mean this list was made when patch 1.38 was the current patch of the game. Right? So, I went through and made an entire PowerPoint presentation going over every single character as well as the universal mechanics and listing off all the changes made in the patch. More specifically, listing off every change in patch 1.38 that I would A, keep, B, remove, and then C, add or rework. And by add, I mean add any changes that weren't included in that patch, and rework certain changes to work better and be more balanced from that patch. And thankfully, since it's in regards to the universal system mechanics, it's not terribly outdated at all. Everything I listed off there still stands, at least in my opinion. So, with that said, I want to talk about all the changes that I personally would add. So, without further ado, let's get started. In regards to the changes I would add to the game, specifically in regards to the system mechanics, the list goes as follows. The first change I would make is to Guard Cancel Vanish. I think that Guard Cancel Vanish is extremely exploitable, and I think that it needs to be toned down just a little bit. And by toned down, I mean have it to where you can't initiate a vanish during a guard cancel for at least a good second and a half after guarding, after blocking. Like if a block string ends, or, if you stop blocking, you should not be able to vanish for at least a good second and a half. This way, it's not as exploitable. The second change I would like to see is to have more recovery on beam attacks when the beams are whipped. In other words, fix this little issue. Have it be more like that, rather than be more like that. So just a little more recovery on the beams would definitely help. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Next change I would like to see is Super Dash. Not so much the mechanic itself, but more so this. Super Dashing on block is stupidly safe. Like, unbelievably safe. And combined with Guard Cancel Vanish, it could be pretty unpunishable, relatively speaking. It can be pretty ridiculous. So I think that Super Dash should have a bit more recovery, especially on block. It should go from being 0 frames on block to -5 on block. This way, if you Super Dash on block, it's a lot more punishable. Next change would be to Limit Break. Because Limit Break, you do a ton of damage in Limit Break, so I think reducing how much damage you do by just a bit would definitely make it a bit easier to manage with. Like, instead of there being a 20% increase in damage when you're in Limit Break, you instead have a 10% increase in damage when you're in Limit Break. And when you're in Sparking, while in Limit Break, you have a 20% damage increase instead of the 30 you have now. The next change, speaking of Sparking Blast, would be for Sparking Blast to not allow you to vanish if you initiate a Sparking Blast for at least a good 3 seconds. In other words,
maximum power!
While this is incredibly punishable now, that doesn't mean it's foolproof. Because, remember, you can still do this.
Maximum power!
You see what I mean? And regardless of range,
maximum power!
the second you hit the ground, you can vanish. So it kind of makes
maximum power!
the nerf to Sparking on block a little redundant. Not completely, just a little bit. So I think having it to where you can't vanish for at least a good 3 seconds after Sparking would definitely solve that issue. Next change I want to see is in regards to this. 6M. 6M is a very solid overhead and has very solid button, but the problem is the attack startup is just a bit too slow. So I think reducing the attack startup from 24 frames to 20 frames would make it a lot better and a lot more worth using. And plus, there could potentially be some more use for this outside of just block strings. Block strings would definitely be the first, the biggest thing, but I'm sure there could be other applications. The next change I want to talk about is in regards to Lariat Assist, specifically single hit style Lariat Assist. Like Super Saiyan Vegeta's B Assist, for example. I think that assists like that should have a unified amount of block stun. Very specifically, 35 frames of block stun. This way, they'll at least be worth using in neutral and in regards to block strings. Because they'll be A, less punishable, and B, it'll make them really, really good. Like, because of how fast they are and how fast the recovery on assists are, having something like that to keep the opponent in block for longer, to either spade and having them either, spark or vanish or use some kind of, move to get out of it, would be really good. And the last change I would like to see is in regards to beam assists. More specifically to their hit stun. 50 frames. That's how much hit stun there is on A and B type beam assists. Like, Super Saiyan Goku's Kamehameha, Trunks' Masenko, stuff like that. So I think the hit stun should be increased from 50 to 60. And by hit stun I mean when the character is in a state like that, before they rebound and recover, that should be increased to 60. Instead of being at 50 frames. This way, confirming mid-screen with a beam assist would be much easier. And outside of that, I've got nothing else. Those are all the changes that I personally would make to the system mechanics. And those are all the universal changes I would make to the game. And that's really all I've got to say, so thank you guys for watching. Next time we're going to talk about Super Saiyan Goku, so hope you enjoyed this video and hope you'll tune in for the next one. Until then, thanks for watching. Don't do anything stupid. Take care of yourselves, and I will catch you all later. Bye-bye.